Please rise and body your spirit as we sing our gathering hymn, number 131. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Hillsborough, where we constantly strive to be an open and welcoming congregation to all who seek community and support. We do not require that you adhere to one specific creed or common belief or ritualistic practice, but rather we are a covenantal community, committed to loving and supporting each other in our individual, lifelong quest for truth and meaning in matters of our personal faith. So whoever you are, member, guest, or friend, and for whatever reason or purpose guided you to join us here, either in person or online, we welcome you. My name is Allison Mahaley, and I'm the worship coordinator for today's service. I want to thank everyone who has made today's service possible, and the list is long. This is truly a labor of love as we are a lay-led congregation. So first, let me thank Aviva Enoch, who is not only our musician and treasured pianist, but she also leads our worship team to help coordinate these services every Sunday. I also want to thank the volunteers who make coffee and who pass out our orders of service, who teach RE, and do so many other things to make UUCH a wonderful and welcoming experience on Sunday mornings, our main time of gathering and celebrating as a religious community. In addition to our volunteers, we have paid staff, and that includes Aviva and Alex, who streams our services, and Annabelle, who helps with the coffee and is ready to do childcare when we get some little ones, and of course, Amy Dark. If you have not come to know all of the ways that Amy has made our lives better and easier, please chat with her, or me, I can tell you. And today, we have a listening ear. I believe it's Lou No? It's Tristan. So Tristan, if you want to make the announcement about what the listening ear is, that would be great. And finally, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Tima Oken. I know Tima from her work around the community as an anti-racism expert. The first time I heard her speak was actually here in this very place. I believe it was an event put on Hate-Free Schools. Yes. And the second time I had the pleasure of hearing her was when she came to the Equity Committee of the North Carolina Council of Churches. Tima has spent over 30 years working with and for organizations, schools, and community-based institutions as a trainer, a facilitator, and coach, focused on issues of racial justice and equity. For the past 6 years, Dr. Oken has worked with Teach Equity Now, a collaborative which houses the Teaching for Equity Fellows program currently offered at Duke University School of Divinity in Durham. We are so lucky to have you with us today, so thank you so much for coming. Before we create our sacred space, are there any announcements for the good of the order? And before you come up, this is a really good time to put your phone in worship mode and to remember that we are code yellow, which means you are all wearing your masks except Tima and I when we're up here because we've both just taken COVID tests. Negative. So any positive? Just kidding. So if there are any announcements, come on up.
Hey, good morning. I'm Patty O'Connor, and one of the ways that Amy Dark has made our lives easier is by coordinating the coffee volunteer sign-up list, which now looks like this. On the back are instructions for the coffee hour, and Amy will be happy to email people like sometime the week before to remind them that they're on duty for coffee hour. So that's like a sweet thing and should help us have something grand every week. There's also space on this. If you can't do coffee hour, if you can't come over for setup or stay for cleanup, if you want to bring a snack to share, there's a place on here even for a snack bringer whose only obligation is to bring a snack. So I think all bases are covered.
Hi, I'm Tristan Sarumi. As aforementioned, I am the listening ear. What this means is that if there's anything on your mind, anything you want to talk about, or if you need a sounding board, if you need conversation, I know it's been a difficult couple weeks for most, if not all of us, and I will be happy to listen, happy to converse as you need. Any subject is inbound, so find me after the service, somewhere inside probably because of the weather.
And immediately after the service today, the second Sunday Chalice Circle is meeting. Are we meeting in here or in the RE room? In the sanctuary, once people sort of clear out after coffee hour. So if you signed up to be part of the second Sunday Chalice Circle, it will be here. Are there any other announcements? Oh, here she comes.
Hi y'all, I'm Amy Dark. I didn't know it was Amy's awesome day. Thank you. We have the Ministerial Discernment Task Force survey that is now open and is in your weekly newsletter. We also have paper copies. If you need one, you can talk to me and I'll take care of that for you. Please get those answers in ASAP so you can go back to the task force. We're also doing another Pathway to Membership class February 26th at noon. Anyone who's interested can just stick around after services and join us for that. I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Dave, though, I'm wondering if you want to announce the work day.
You haven't figured it out yet.
Oh, I thought I saw the sign up in the evening.
Yeah, we have a sign up, but no date yet.
Okay. Okay. If there are no more announcements, let's prepare ourselves for our service. We'll begin with the lighting of our chalice, our time-honored symbol of the light and loving warmth of our community of faith. And our chalice lighting words today are actually a responsive reading. So if you would look in your order of service, the part that you say is, "You are beloved and are welcomed here." And actually, you all get to start us off. So if you would all say that together. You are beloved and you are welcomed here. Whether tears have fallen, whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week, or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, you are beloved and you are welcome here. Whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful,
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
whether you have untold stories buried deep inside, or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort, you
are beloved and you are welcome here.
whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing our promises,
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment,
You are beloved and you are welcome here.
in this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection, let us worship together. Our opening words called The Journey by David White will be read by Dr. Oken.
David White is a fabulous poet. I don't know if you're aware of him, so it's my pleasure to read his poem, The Journey. Above the mountains, the geese turn into the light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that first bright and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. Sometimes, with the bones of the black sticks left when the fire has gone out, someone has written something new in the ashes of your life. You are not leaving. Even as the light fades quickly now, you are arriving.
Please rise and body your spirit as we sing our opening hymn, number 151.
Chains holding me.
Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a sharing community where our joys are celebrated, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. Each Sunday, we take some time to reflect on the special happenings that have occurred this week among our members, friends, and guests. Some choose to share aloud, while others choose to remain silent. Here, we make room for both. For those of you who would like to share aloud, please take a moment before we begin to center yourself. Collect your thoughts so that what you share this morning is personal, heartfelt, and brief. So now, please come forward, use this microphone, tell us your name, and share what is in your heart. When you're finished, please release a stone into the vase on the altar. For those who are joining us online and would like to share your joys or sorrows, please put them in the chat and let us know whether you would like them read aloud, and we'll drop a stone for you.
Good morning. So most of you already know that Tristan and I are getting married this summer. So the save the date and the website and everything is on the board. So anybody, all of you are welcome. We want everybody to come who would like to come. So everything is on the board for anybody who needs details.
Can you drop one for me too?
Yes.
I just have to wait.
Hi, I'm Amy. I don't usually share stuff during this time, but in 2017, I was a single mom with 3 small children, 2 in elementary school and 1 that was too young for school still. And I was diagnosed with breast cancer that had spread to my lymph nodes, and I was stage 3, and I spent a year doing chemo, surgeries, radiation. And that was 6 years ago, last Friday, that I was diagnosed. So I celebrate 6 years of life with my children, and I also shed some tears this week for those that were not so lucky. For those of you who prefer to silently acknowledge your joys and sorrows remaining in your hearts, I invite you to come to the altar and release a stone into the vase in silence while Aviva plays
There is a love.
There Is a Love. After she has played it through one time, you're invited to join in singing it, the words are in your order of service. Time, let's release the children from the sanctuary by singing them off to their classes. The blessing is in the back of your hymnal. To the podium.
So, first of all, I'm really not Dr. Oken, I'm Tema. Very
Oh,
nice to
sorry.
be here. No, it's quite all right. There's a joke, I always look behind me to see if we were talking about my father. And I also want to say I loved everything about the introduction, except I don't consider myself in any way an expert. I feel like I, like you, am learning all the time about white supremacy and racism and our response to it. So I'm very happy to be here with you this morning to offer some things for us to think about. So I was invited to talk with you about the relationship between white supremacy, racism, and love. And one way I thought to help us grasp this relationship is to realize that white supremacy and racism are, by intent, by impact, by definition, the very erasure of love. So that, again, white supremacy and racism are the erasure of love. So let's just take a breath on that. So we're all wounded one way or another by this erasure, whether we participate in the erasing or are the target of it. We are, all of us, swimming in the waters of white supremacy. And this particular water is toxic. And like any toxic substance, it eats away our skin, our bones, our hearts, and our minds. So I think of myself at 17, the time is the late 1960s. I'm walking the halls of the recently desegregated Chapel Hill High School, blissfully unaware that black students from Lincoln High are experiencing the erasure of their institution, of their culture, and their personhood. I'm perfectly comfortable in my body, mind, and spirit, for nothing about my high school experience has changed except for the geographic relocation to a newer building on the edge of town. My principal, my faculty, my school colors, school name, all are intact and familiar. My school clubs remain mostly all white, as do the sports teams and the cheerleading squads. I do not know that Lincoln's football record is unparalleled in the state, even as I walk by the trash cans where the trophies have been discarded in a careless heap. I'm ignorant of the fact that Lincoln High had its own newspaper, its own student government, its own prom kings and queens. I have no idea that Lincoln's teachers were dismissed in what turned out to be a mass firing of black administrators and teachers across the South. I'm unaware that desegregation assumed that no white child would be or should be led or taught by a person of color. I'm unaware that this means that black students have lost the opportunity to be taught by people who understand and honor their genius. Now they attend classrooms where many, if not most, teachers assume they are deficient. I assume that my fellow black students are happy to come to such a well-resourced new school. My white life does not require me to make any acknowledgement or accommodation at all. And today, I see this erasure continue as we're witness to a growing number of state-sanctioned attacks on the teaching of black history and critical race theory in our schools, along with the banning and censorship of truth-telling books in school libraries. These attacks, like those on LGBTQ plus history and ethnic studies, are a strategy of erasure. An erasure of black lives, brown lives, LGBTQ lives, of experience and wisdom and fury and joy. An erasure fueled by fiery rhetoric, pitting us against each other and meant to make us afraid, all in the service of political power. These realities, the erasures, the censorship of curriculum, the obliviousness of a white teenage girl, they depend on centuries of deeply ingrained cultural beliefs that teach us white people, whiteness, white culture, white values, white norms, white ways of thinking and feeling and being are more valuable, more human, more worthy than black and brown people, black and brown cultures and values and ways of thinking and feeling and being. These realities, these erasures depend on a stepladder of human value with white at the top, black at the bottom, and other racial groups penned under white and above black, pitted against each other in an ever-changing hierarchy based on what power and capitalism require. This white supremacy ideology advances the erasure of black and brown institutions and culture and personhood, with its start in the attempted genocide of indigenous peoples and cultures and the enslavement of millions of men, women, and children brought forcibly from Africa. This white supremacy erasure persists in laws like the ones in Florida, censoring the teaching of truth about black history, which is, after all, the history of all of us, for there is no American history or U.S. history without black history. But here's the rub. White supremacy knows it's easy to pit us against each other using hate and fear. And here's the other rub. Organizing people into hate and fear is really the low bar. My ability to move through high school without noticing the intense erasures that my fellow students were experiencing, without realizing how my comfort came at their expense, without questioning all the brilliance and wisdom that I was being denied, without making one authentic relationship across racial lines, all of this was made possible because I accepted without question, without acknowledgement, the silent and persistent invitation to center whiteness as the important, normal thing. Those of us who are white, we don't have to wake up in the morning, any of us, and decide we're going to be racist in order for white supremacy to operate. All we have to do is say nothing, do nothing, when the state attempts to erase the history of our black and brown neighbors. All we have to do is not notice the multiple erasures happening around us all the time. While white supremacy invites the passivity and ignorance of those who are white, those who are black, indigenous, men and women and children of color can speak and do speak all too clearly about how their waking moments, often if not always, require a reckoning with how to navigate whatever white supremacy and racism have waiting for them every day. When they speak, though, white supremacy is ready, announcing with bombast that any truth-telling is unreasonable, too angry, a race card, or any of the many other labels that it uses to discard, discredit, and yet again erase. This strategy of organizing some of us into passivity and into ignorance, into hate, this erasure of human minds, bodies, and spirits, this, my friends, is a wound of white supremacy. The strategy of name-calling, labeling, dismissing, and invalidating, this, my friends, is a wound of white supremacy. Each and every wound is the result of an erasure of love, an erasure often intentional and violent, an erasure often subtle and covert. So here's one thing I know for sure. White supremacy does all it can to keep from us the truth of our essential interdependence. White supremacy disconnects us from each other across lines of race, from each other within our own racial groups, from ourselves, from the land and the water and the wind, and from God or spirit or the divine or whatever it is that we call the energy that ties us together. If we want to know where white supremacy has a grip, all we have to do is look for the places where love is being squeezed out. All we have to do is look for the wounds. And these wounds are, I'm sad to say, all too easy to spot. We're a nation of open wounds right now. Our suicide, homicide, depression, addiction, stress, and trauma are epidemic. We spawn a Congress hostage to people who delight in acrid rhetoric and lies. We struggle to get good health care in a system that pushes doctors and nurses to the breaking point, while insurance companies play the lottery with our lives in the name of ever more profit. We send our children to schools splitting apart as overworked and underpaid teachers are told they cannot teach the truth. We allow 2 or 3 men to make more money than whole nations, while too many of us go homeless and hungry. We breed a media that has become a feeding frenzy of distortions, twisting our minds and killing our bodies. We refuse to face the ever-growing evidence that relentless exploitation of the earth is pushing us literally over the edge. White supremacy and capitalism have created a belief system in which power and profit are prized more than any of us, more than life itself, more than the essential truth that we are literally all in this together. We're a world on fire right now, and we seem unable or unwilling to face the fact that we cannot continue to organize ourselves in ways that benefit a few at the expense of the many. We cannot continue this carelessness that costs so many lives physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychically, and spiritually. We cannot afford this carelessness that destroys the land and the water and the living beings we share this land and water with. We can't continue living this way, so bereft of love. So, what can we do? What must we do? What do we do? What do we do in the face of such lovelessness? First, we grieve. We grieve the gaping wound of lovelessness in our country. We grieve the lives stolen by the relentlessness of racism. We grieve the confusion and disillusion and despair that white supremacy leaves in its wake. We grieve the pain that comes when we take a collective look in the mirror and realize how we've allowed ourselves to get to this place. We grieve the pain that comes when we take a personal look in the mirror and come to grips with the ways we have cooperated with, perpetuated, colluded with, the subtle and not so subtle ways that white supremacy invites us all in. We grieve knowing that feeling our grief points the way toward a greater wholeness and becomes a potent force in the healing of our shared wounds. And as we grieve, we ask ourselves how we counter such systemic erasures of love. So I have an answer to offer. It's not the answer, it's simply one way through. And I offered this as something that I learned from my mother, who came to me many years after she died as I was taking a walk near my home, my body full of grieving. I heard her tell me, with a calm and strong voice, that she had for me 4 instructions. I was startled and curious, and I listened closely. First, she said, be loved and be loved. Then she said, don't be afraid, be brave. Then she said, pay attention. And finally she said, find the others. So I'm going to go through these because I think these are really beautiful instructions. So we do, each and every one of us and all of us together, have the power to be loved and to allow ourselves to be loved. All religious and spiritual traditions have a version of the directive to love our neighbors as ourselves. But I want to be clear, I'm not talking about a warm feeling in our hearts or a Hallmark card marshmallow soft love. I am talking about a heartbreaking love, grounded in the deep and hard work of self-reflection, of knowing how this culture has claimed our brains, our hearts, our bones. I'm talking about a radically fierce love that beseeches us to treat all people with dignity, to set boundaries when those are necessary, to speak truth to power, to announce without flinching our commitment to doing what love requires. I'm talking about the ability to be honest about the love we have to offer and the love we so desperately need, want, and deserve. I'm talking about engaging in a practice of love, often messy, always courageous, that requires a willingness to be vulnerable about what we do and don't know, about our limitations as well as our strengths, about our deepest fears and our greatest hopes for our collective future. I'm talking about the imperative to take action again and again and again against racism and its toxic hierarchy of value, and on behalf of love that offers so much more possibility. I'm talking about a love that understands we cannot afford to throw anybody away. We do, each and every one of us and all of us together, have the power to pay attention. Paying attention forces us to come up against some hard truths about our own conditioning. How might my story have been different if I'd known how to pay attention in high school? To notice the erasure that was happening all around me. To allow that noticing to lead me into a solidarity with rather than an ignorance about. How might those of us who are white shift this legacy of white supremacy and racism if we allowed ourselves to notice the ways in which we participate? If we paid attention enough to admit our biases, to feel the pain of causing harm to someone else, even when the harm is not intentional. If we took a breath every time we become defensive to allow a different truth to sink in. Now I say this knowing that black and brown people, like all oppressed people, have always had to pay attention. And this is the currency of survival after all. My mother was talking to me as a white woman to a white woman, so I can only say I'm both grateful and anguished. Grateful that there are those among us who are well practiced at paying attention, and anguished at the reason why. We do, each and every one of us and all of us together, have the power to be brave. Being brave doesn't mean being unafraid, it means being afraid and doing it anyway. It invites us into a different kind of power, the kind of power we see in the blades of grass that grow in between the cracks of cement in defiance against the crushing. A kind of power grounded in the deep commitment to the complexity of the practice of loving our neighbor as ourselves and ourselves as our neighbor. I think of all the people who've been inordinately brave. There have always been people choosing love in the face of great oppression. Yesterday, I had the wonderful experience of attending a teach-in about the great Howard Thurman, an African-American Christian mystic who chose love over and over again in the face of great hatred. Or Anne Braden, a Southern white educator and activist who was clear about her responsibility to organize other white people from a place of radical love. So many black and brown children, women, and men risked lives, knowing that they were forging the path to a better future they'd never see. So many white children, women, and men refused to go along to get along. The list of those choosing love over hate and fear is long. Many are known to us, many are unsung. We rejoice in their bravery and we breathe it in, asking it to carry us forward. And finally, we do, each and every one of us and all of us together, have the power to find each other, find the others who want to live into this shared commitment to love. White supremacy and racism are a collective wound, and healing that wound requires community. I find myself very happily in more and more spaces these days where groups of all different kinds of people are speaking openly and with great determination about our desire, our need, our right, as the song we just sang, to get free. Getting free is not something we do on our own, for I can't be truly free if my freedom depends on your suffering, and I can only be truly free if you are also free. Getting free is also not something we do for somebody else. Indigenous woman Lilla Watson wisely says that if you've come here to help me, you're wasting your time, but if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. We defeat white supremacy and racism by working with each other and for each other. What future might we imagine together as we become ever more insistent we want, we need, we are resolved to be a community, a nation, a global community grounded in the shared belief that caring for each other so that all of us can thrive is the most important thing. More important to us than the accumulation of politicized power and wealth, as important to us as our relationship with and for the earth. What future might we imagine together as we move forward with the shared understanding that love is the question, love is the answer, love is the practice? None of this is easy. If it was easy, we would have done it by now. Getting free, practicing love requires so much of us. It requires emotional maturity and responsibility, self-awareness, determination, vulnerability, compassion, discernment, the ability to sit in not knowing while moving ahead anyway, humility, and a big, big dose of humor. It requires music and poetry and dancing. It requires heartbreak and heart opening. We cannot do this hard thing using blame or shame or name-calling or self-righteousness. We can do this hard thing with fierce, deep, resilient, open-hearted love. One more breath. And I close by asking you and asking us all to love as if our very lives depended on it, because they do, my beloveds, they do.
Thank you, Emma. It's very provocative, as it should be. At this time each Sunday, we take up a monetary offering that supports our social justice work in our Orange County community. This month, our plate goes to Northern Orange NAACP. Please donate by placing your cash or check into the offertory plate. And if by check, please write plate in the memo line. Or you can go to our website and click on the donate button, or I believe there is a QR code printed in the order of service. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you so much, Aviva. Please join me in the prayer of collective gratitude printed in your order of service. For the love that surrounds us every morning, for the friends beside us, and for the generous gifts just received, let us be truly grateful. Please stand in body or spirit as we sing our closing hymn, Answering the Call of Love, number 1014 in your teal hymnal.
So the composer has changed the word slightly to answering the call of love. So anytime you see standing on the side of love, just say answering the call of love instead. We're going to do our best for a moment.
Whatsoever
Our closing poem is by the fabulous Nayyirah Waheed. The hard season will split you through. Do not worry. You will bleed water. Do not worry. This is grief. Your face will fall out and down your skin, and there will be scorching. Do not worry. Keep speaking the years from their hiding places. Keep coughing up smoke from all the deaths you have died. Keep the rage tender, because the soft season will come. It will come. Loud, ready, gulping, both hands in your chest, up all night, up all of the nights, to drink all damage into love.
Please join me in our extinguishing the chalice words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, my friends, and blessed be.
Blessed be.